So, ladies and gentlemen, today in Sports File, we're going to take a quick but very efficient look at a squad that I think is the best NHL team of all time. This is so obvious that no Edmonton Oilers fan can really argue, besides the fact that the Oilers under Gretzky era scored more goals and maybe had better road record. The 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens in their 68th season, flew to their 20th Stanley Cup. Now, they set an NHL points record in the season with 132, 60 wins, only 8 losses, and 12 ties. Now, they were first in the Norris Division, first in the Wales Division, and they had an astounding plus-minus record. They had scored 387 goals while only giving up 171. Now, compare that to everybody freaking out about Tampa Bay this year. I don't think Tampa should be even considered the 2019 version. I mean, the same conversation as the Montreal Canadiens and Edmonton and Boston. Now, what made this team great, there was 14 players on the roster that were drafted and developed by the Canadiens, including Pierre Bouchard, Rick Chartrand, Brian Englam, Bob Gainey, Réjean Houle, Guy Lafleur, Michel Larocque, Pierre Mondoux, Bill Nyrup, Dougie Rosbrow, Larry Robinson, Steve Shutt, Mary Tremblay, and Murray Wilson. Now, the only player on the roster considered not developed by Montreal was Peter Mahovlich, but he was always considered a Montreal Canadian trading. Now, the regular season, I think they only lost one game in a period of 30 in the second half. Just outstanding home and road play. Now, these games at the Forum were continuously a game where Montreal would score a couple of goals early, finish them team off in the third period, be 7-2, 7-3, and the games were so lopsided. Hockey Night in Canada made a kind of a smart decision to not just show Montreal's home games on a national network on Saturday, because nobody's going to watch a game knowing the score beforehand. Now, in the regular season that year, Lafleur led the team with 136 points. Steve Shutt had a league team high 60 goals on the left wing with 105 points. Robinson had 85 points. Guy Lapointe had 76. Jacques Lemaire had 75. Peter Mahovlich had 62. Dougie Rosbrow had 60. Cornway 53. Lambert 52. Réjean Houle 52. Mario 45. So it was a very, very balanced attack, and it was a very lean year. The only player that really cracked the lineup, because it was pretty well the same team the year before, was John Van Boxmeer, and as you know, there was no room on the franchise for him, and eventually ended up in Buffalo. But the unheralded players on the team, including Dougie Jarvis, Nyrop, Roberts, and of course leading the way in the pipes was Kenny Dryden. Now, Kenny had a very, very outstanding year. Didn't play the amount of games people would thought, because Bunny LaRocque was a good backup. Dryden ended the year with a 41-6-8 record with 10 shutouts, giving up only 117 goals for a 2.14 average. But while the regular season was great, they pretty well swept their way to the Stanley Cup final. Had a rough series against the Islanders, losing at home in overtime in Game 5 in the semifinal series, but the Islanders were a growing team, and that was a decent opponent. Now, in the final against Boston, they won the first 2 games at home, 7-3 and 3-0. Then Game 3 in Boston was 4-2, and of course the famous Game 4 where Lafleur fed Lemaire for that overtime goal on a mistake by Al Sims to take the series in the venerable Boston Garden. Now, for me as a sports reporter for 36 years, and I've seen a lot of great teams come and go, the 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens are not only considered one of the greatest NHL teams of all time, which they are, one of the greatest sports teams of all time. Maybe the Yankees of the glory years, and you look at the Dallas Cowboys and the Patriots of the modern era. There's not too many teams could compete with Montreal on a fan level, on a success level, on a what I call a personality level. It was a very tight team. There was great friendships on the squad, although even Mario Tremblay and Peter Mahovlich had some falling outs on occasion. For Scotty Bowman to coach that team to such great success, people said, well, didn't need much of a coach, but to keep all those Eagles in place. And let me tell you, going into the Forum back then, it wasn't like a place where people felt they were going to get beaten up. Just the fact you go in the Forum and your chance of winning was slim and none. It took a 3-period effort. And look how good Boston, the Islander teams, and even the Maple Leafs back then, they had heavy difficulty with Montreal in all factors because they were the Flying Frenchmen. And that defensive line of Roberts, Gainey, and Jarvis, the grinders, Risebrough, Tremblay, and Lambert, the big three, Big Bird, Savard, and Lapointe, and Nyrop did a great job as well. Overall, like I said, it had goaltending, it had defense, it had scoring. I think there are certain games you could have scored more goals, but you didn't want to run up to score. But some people criticize, they said it's after the Washington expansion and some really weak goaltending. Well, you play what's in front of you, and like I said, people were out to beat Montreal that year and they couldn't do it. Now, what will happen in the future if Tampa Bay breaks the points record or beats Detroit's record for wins? I don't think people would even think that these teams are at the level of the old Montreal Canadiens. You got to understand that title was the second in a run of 4. The team had won in 71 and 73, so that means 6 cups in a short period of time. And again, the fan base we see now in 2019, that's big on Carey Price and Domi and all the Tatar, all the great players, Weber. That's still the remnants of the great Montreal Canadiens fans that were in their teens or pre-teens back then. Being a Montreal Canadiens fan, you know your history. That's why I feel bad for Toronto Maple Leaf fans, because you have some history, but not the level of the Montreal Canadiens, because Montreal is le glorieux. Where's the glory of the Toronto Maple Leafs until the last couple of seasons? You got to retain joy as fans, and there's no joy taking it for Toronto. There's joy in taking it Montreal because the franchise spoke for itself, and even when the team makes the playoffs, like in recent years, it's kind of an overachieving type of thing, because they had maybe 1/10 of the talent of the 77 Habs, and they still are a contender like this year for the playoffs. You put on that jersey and you want to do well. But what's really interesting on that team, I met a few members of the squad in person, and I find to be tremendous studiers of history. I had a conversation with Yvon Lambert at an alumni Montreal game in Woodstock in 2010. He said, we knew what we're into. We had to keep the glory of the previous years, the glory of the current years, and the glory that was going to come later on. But I think they're overall, the only mistake with that team, they should have maybe got rid of Wilson that year and brought in maybe a young player from the minors, either McKechnie or one of the young prospects that you should have kept. But like Dryden Larocque, as solid as Waugh and Hayward was, like that's the second best modern tandem for the Montreal Canadiens. So on this rainy day in Woodstock, we also like to say our condolences to people in New Zealand for the incident this morning. Our hearts are with you, and even though we're a couple of continents away, we still throw prayers to everybody, prayers for recovery, prayers for peace, and we have to love each other. That's what it's all about. So everybody have a good morning if you can. See you on the flip. Keep your stick in the ice. Bye.